They were also smug. That's why, really. No other reason. Smugness. Smug people just taste better. I mean, of course they do. I met a cannibal in Borneo who once justified his peculiar dietary preference this way. Cows don't like ice cream. Blew me back up a little bit. I was talking about smugness. Smug people are smug for a reason. It isn't just something you are, it's something you become. It takes time. It's like becoming a Zen Buddhist, but in reverse. It requires disciplined adherence to a regimen of small daily rituals of greed and self aggrandizement. By an early age, with careful tutelage, you develop a narrow range of specific presuppositions about the world and a strict set of expectations thereof. You learn to take your coffee at a certain temperature. You eat only cherries harvested from a particular hillside on the windward slopes of the Yakima Valley. You enjoy only the highest end, locally sourced, bespoke ice cream. You learn to believe that you fart perfume. That's the hook, you see. It's gastro. You are what you eat. My friend in Borneo was suggesting that beef cows, coveted universally for their delicious flavor, eat grass, whereas you and I eat cows and chickens and fruit and even ice cream. A strict sense of taboo stands between most of humanity and itself in this respect, and I suppose that's a good thing, since our very existence might be in question were that not the case. Most of us shudder at the idea of eating human flesh. It revolts us, evoking a gag reflex at the very thought. Most of us are not psychopaths. I am most decidedly that, which excludes me from any viable sample for study. On the contrary, I begin to salivate at the very thought of eating people, and the casual mention of it in polite company, particularly in jest. Something of an excruciating ecstasy for me to endure. I do mess. It's mortifying. How I came to be this way is too long and boring a story to recount here. Suffice it to say that by my early 20s I developed a special culinary fondness for the well-to-do. I infiltrated their world at first by taking various jobs at the yacht clubs and country clubs in communities known for extreme wealth. I gravitated to those communities because I could enjoy a degree of invisibility there. People pay no attention to the help, so long as the help stays in line. If the help looks just like their great nephew, seems affable, has decent tableside manners, and looks you in the eye when he accepts your tip, so much the better. You may commence forgetting them as soon as you've met them, and that's exactly what most of them do. My own upbringing provided me with all the social and educational prerequisites I needed to move among them invisibly, frictionless, as free as a fart in silk. And while a degree of social facility is necessary for me to enjoy the lifestyle I prefer, I chose to focus my work among the very wealthy for entirely different reasons. You see, there's a piquant you get only in the soft fats of people who are wealthy enough to afford truffles, caviar, good champagne, and high-end pâté. It's impossible to describe, but if you know, you know. Cut of bacon off the ass of a woman who eats truffles and gets regular shiatsu is a world away. From the same cut of bacon off the ass of a scrawny hooker at a truck stop on the fringes of Titusville. Take it from me. It's the same as the difference between a magnificently marbled cut of Kobe beef and a ropey slab of skirt steak hacked off a cow that's grown old in an ashram in Calcutta. The problem with eating the rich, though, is visibility. More often than not, they have broad social networks and big families. They can't vanish for long without people starting to sniff around. That was problematic for me because I preferred more of a house guest arrangement, one where I moved in for at least as long as it took me to catch, cook, and eat them at my leisure. Eating somebody, after all, is an intimate affair. That's the rub. You can't get in a big rush about that kind of cooking, because cooking people is by definition high cuisine. Were it not, it would be simple savagery. And I'm nobody's savage. I enjoy my victims with an appropriate vintage, preferably a bottle I've selected from their own well stocked, climate controlled cellar. I'll settle for a cold beer, though. I really like Lombra. Gradually, at first, I developed a reliable pattern among the yacht clubs in Miami and up the East Coast to the Melbourne area. There's constant work for anyone willing to do it, and a dearth of low rent help with native complexion and enough English language skills. I wore every hat in the front and back of the house, taking whatever I could get. Then I'd start planning the next episode of House Guest, sizing up the various club members, learning names to research later among the public records at the City Hall. I was always surprised to learn how easy information was to access. I told the clerk I was in school for my real estate license and was developing my clientele. Most people will open any door for you if you say something confidently, even if what you say makes no sense at all. A country club in Palm Beach was where I learned how to select my next guests according to their leftovers. I had already taken to referring to them in my internal dialogue as my guests. Hearing someone place an order might not remind you that we are what we eat, but examining someone's eaten over plate will remind you of little else. I selected my first guests at the club because they often sat alone as a couple and didn't seem to have any friends. The Greenblatts. I'll never forget them. She wore cat-eye glasses and he had a neatly trimmed little white beard. They always ordered caviar and champagne to start, a detail that slipped my mind entirely until much later, on a wonderfully balmy evening on their back patio, struggling to locate the precise source of something special about the flavor of their kidneys. There was something sweet layered just over that uremic edge, something wonderful. From then on, all of my house guests were regular consumers of champagne and caviar. I learned shortly thereafter that pâté, foie gras, and truffles were excellent dietary preparations for the human liver. Like any choice viscera, you want a decent amount of fat content without being unhealthy. There's always a fine line with people who like rich food and drink. There's nothing more delectable than a nice fatty liver that's been deprived of alcohol. That same liver in the body of a drunk is impossible to cook in any way that doesn't result in a rubbery mass of cirrhotic scar tissue. What you want optimally is the liver of someone who enjoys an occasional glass of champagne but doesn't tend to overindulge. In subsequent months, I moved my operation. I put my recent discovery through a rigorous series of field tests I conducted on the clientele of an exclusive little yacht club near Satellite Beach. I may have gotten a little too comfortable there, though, and after a brief run of near misses, I relocated to the West Coast, to the Los Angeles area for a hiatus. I chose it because there are a lot of fabulously wealthy people there with unimaginably rich diets, and a topography that, in wealthier suburbs, lends itself perfectly to the process of preparing human cuisine, providing an enhanced level of built-in security, even in neighborhoods that you could characterize as having high-density populations. That same topography is what gave those creepy Manson family kids an edge. At least, that was my thinking at the time. It's part 1 of SMUG. Please tune in soon for part 2.